Tonight on the docket, the stock market slid more than 500 points during the day, eventually closing down 391 points. This market turmoil acts as a clear message to the Federal Reserve from Wall Street. We're tired of your liberty-crushing interventions. After the failure of all the stimulus programs in the past 4 years, believing that central planning and government intervention will lead to prosperity is groundless. The Constitution never outlined a role for a mysterious and omnipotent entity such as the Fed. It left that out for a reason, because only a free market leads to economic growth and sound money and respects the rights of economic freedom. Could the Fed's latest stimulus decision lead America into another Lehman Brothers-like financial crisis? More on that later in the show. But first, we sound the alarm on an under-the-radar story about the federal government and its violation, evasion, and even opposition to your Fourth Amendment rights. You should never have to be subjected to an unwarranted search and seizure. But guess what? That's just what the feds have been doing for decades, we now know. The FBI has been using a cell phone tracking device known as a stingray to zero in on anyone they want. And this technology has apparently been available since the 1990s. This, as the Justice Department Civil Rights Bureau has 17 ongoing investigations on various American police forces. That's the most in the Justice Department's history. And now the federal government is looking to the Department of Justice to police the police, as in the Department of Justice would rein in local police forces who have committed acts against people's civil liberties. But can the Department of Justice be trusted to do what it itself has been accused of violating civil liberties and transgressions with its use of mobile phones as a way to track people without a warrant? Here to discuss is Republican strategist Jack Berkman. Jack, even when we discuss unpleasant things, it's always nice to have you here.
Well said. So well said.
Well, are you surprised? Should any of us be surprised anymore when you wake up this morning and you see the Wall Street Journal and it turns out that the FBI is able to track people, innocent people, just with cell phones wherever they go, as long as the cell phone is on? No intervention by a judge, no scrutiny by a judge, no search warrant, utter disregard for the Fourth Amendment.
I don't even know where to start. I get so angry. I mean, is Stalin president of the United States? Is Nikita Khrushchev? Did somebody elect Adolf Hitler? I mean, when you come down 6th Avenue today to this building, in front of every major hotel building, you've got half a dozen cops. What are they doing? They're hanging around. I mean, this country's become a police state. I told your producer in Arlington, Virginia, where I live and work, you can't pivot. Suburb of Washington, D.C., for those who don't know. You can't pivot 10 degrees in any direction and not see a cop or a cop car or some kind of checkpoint. They don't even know what they're checking. I mean, drunk driving has become an excuse to bring in, internalize the Gestapo. I mean, as for the Fourth Amendment, my goodness, if the FBI, if they can put GPS tracking in a car, basically, right, there is no REP. There's no more reasonable expectation of privacy. The Fourth Amendment no longer applies to automobiles. That's basically what we're saying.
Where is the outrage? You and I are outraged. A lot of people watching us now are outraged. But this is a story that we're talking about today, and it'll probably be gone by the end of the week. So question, have Americans given up the ghost on their right to privacy?
Americans sadly lack the intellect to understand something as ethereal as the Fourth Amendment and why it's important. The culture just doesn't believe in that. I mean, they understand the First Amendment. Americans have become so transfixed with their economic well-being that that's all they care about.
Are Americans willing to trade privacy and liberty for the perception of security?
Well said.
Do
yes.
they somehow think
yes.
that because the police are monitoring them and the FBI can follow them,
yes.
that somehow they're safer?
Yes. And 9/11, I followed. Yes, you're exactly right. You say it so well. 9/11 was an excuse to bring in Big Brother. That's what it was. Now, I lost friends. 9/11, a horrific tragedy, but it's not nearly a horrific tragedy enough to do what we've done. I mean, it's become an excuse to destroy our constitutional system.
All right, I want to switch gears with you and see if there's anything the Justice Department does that you like. Right now, there are 17 major city police departments in the United States of America that are being investigated by the Justice Department. We're showing them there on the screen. It's all across the country, starting in New Jersey and ending up in the state of Washington. The investigations center around beating confessions out of people, civil rights violations, arresting people on the basis of their skin color. Is this a good thing or a bad thing for the Justice Department to be doing?
It's a very good thing, and this is the first time I will ever praise President Obama and praise Mr. Holder. I think it's long overdue. I mean, I, as a white male, I can only imagine imagine what minorities are going through. If I'm starting to feel like the police presence is a Gestapo, can you imagine what minorities in all parts of the country are feeling? I support what they're doing. I support it strongly. You know, what I really see is police, the type of young guy who goes into the police today, they don't want to serve and protect. We'll be a little controversial here. What they want to do is find scores so they can move up in the ranks.
What do you mean by scores? People to arrest, easy marks, people that confess?
Easy marks, people who confess so they can move up in the police apparatus. And the other thing, they're just becoming obsessed with small crimes. Drunken driving, if there's a DUI issue and the person has any kind of prominence in Washington, so many police will pile on. They'll try to give them a month of jail time. You know, even drug crimes, the mandatory jail time is out of control in this country.
Why is it that the police don't knock on a door anymore but show up with a battering ram about 5 or 6 times a day in this country? Sometimes it's the wrong house. Sometimes an innocent person gets killed. Sometimes a person who isn't innocent gets killed, but the police don't have the right to kill you because you're sitting in your house and you resisted someone breaking in the door.
It's the Gestapo mentality. I mean, I hate to use that analogy, but it's trending. We're just trending that way. I mean, the problem is, and you know this, you know, you're a national scholar of the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment is virtually dead. It's dead in terms of an automobile. It's probably half dead in terms of your house.
Has the war on drugs killed the Fourth Amendment? Has the public opposition to drugs become so strong that the public and even judges don't care about the Fourth Amendment rights of the targets of these drug raids?
The country became extreme. As America always does, the pendulum swings too far in one direction. We had a huge drug problem, and Bush 41 said, we've got to fight a war on drugs. Reagan did the same thing. That was a good thing to do. The problem is they took it to such extremes that the Rehnquist Court destroyed the Fourth Amendment. I mean, the Rehnquist Court did a lot of good things, but the destruction of the Fourth Amendment, people don't realize how serious that is. I will say this, if it weren't for the First Amendment, you would really feel the effects of the Fourth Amendment. The reason we don't, the reason that these Gestapo-like police forces don't go all the way to the extreme is because they know it will be reported by people like you or be reported on the internet. It's only the First Amendment that really holds them in check. If that weren't there, this would go all the way out.
Jack Berkman, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
You,
As if the steep drop of the stock